The story of Sam, the 26-year-old CEO of Mogul Mail, was one that had all the makings of a modern fairy tale. After being abandoned by his father at a young age, he grew up with his mother, scraping by day. This is the host, and today we're going to be looking into the rise and fall of Sam, the con artist CEO. And as he began rifling through them, he pulled out a handful of business cards and laid them on the table. Each card represented a different major company, including Disney, Ford, Nike, Amazon, Google, and more. He'd barely even made $1 million. His whole life was a lie. So what happened? The sharks could tell that something was off about him. For example, why did he have so many business cards? Why were all the names of the biggest companies in the world? And why did he seem so nervous? They were still burning through cash, and soon it became clear that they would need to raise more money. He knew that if he wanted to get the investors on board, he would need to bring his A game. And he did just that. It was a good story, and it worked. The sharks were buying it. One of them even asked him how much he charged for his services. And Sam replied that he typically charged between $30,000 to $100,000 per campaign. That's when one of the sharks made a $600,000 offer for a 20 stake in the company. But in reality, he was hiding in plain sight. It turned out that he'd been doing this for years. In fact, he had a rap sheet a mile long. He'd been arrested for fraud, theft, identity theft, you name it. And all this time he'd managed to keep it under wraps. But now the truth was out, and there was nowhere left for him to run. You see, he'd taken the money and started a new company called Limitless, which was basically a copy of Mogul Mail. The authorities are still looking for him, and his whereabouts are currently unknown. But if you see him, please do us all a favor and call the police. And to make matters worse, he was actively soliciting investors for this new company, telling them that it was a continuation of Mogul Mail. Needless to say, his investors were furious. They demanded their money back, but Sam refused. He claimed that he de-invested all the money in research and development and that there was nothing left to give them. But deep down, they knew what had happened. They'd been conned. From there, everything went according to plan. The show aired, the internet exploded, and Sam found himself in the spotlight. He came onto the set with a stack of business cards, and as he began rifling through them, he pulled out a handful of business cards and laid them on the table. You see, while Sam had managed to secure the investment, he never really had the money. As soon as he got the check from the shark, he used it to pay off his debts and keep the company afloat. But now that the jig was up, he was running out of time. He needed a new plan, and fast. Each card represented a different major company, and as he explained how Mogul Mail helped these companies increase their sales, the sharks were impressed. Of course, it was all a lie. The business cards were fake. The companies weren't real. But Sam didn't let that stop him. Sam tried pitching more investors, but they were skeptical of him and his story. Pretty soon, he was desperate. He needed a new angle, something to make people believe in him again. And that's when he got the idea to go on Shark Tank. But despite all these red flags, they decided to play along, giving him a chance to prove himself. They grilled him with questions about his business and his projections and his marketing strategies, but none of it fazed him. He answered every question confidently, almost to a fault. It was clear that he had put a lot of thought into his pitch. But given his age and his lack of experience, the sharks were still reluctant to invest. He told his investors that he was taking Mogul Mail private, that he was buying back their shares for twice what he sold them for. It was a crazy offer, but the investors agreed. And soon enough, the deal was done. Sam was once again in control of Mogul Mail. But now that he had all the money, he disappeared. But Sam was persistent. He kept pushing, assuring them that they wouldn't regret this. And eventually they caved. Well, to understand that, we have to go back to the beginning with Sam's appearance on Shark Tank. You see, while Sam may have known how to spin a good yarn, he was in way over his head. He had no idea how to run a multi-million-dollar company or handle the pressure of being in the public eye. But instead of admitting that, he doubled down, pouring all of his energy into making this new venture work. He hired dozens of employees, leased a massive office space, and bought a fleet of luxury cars. The company was growing faster than ever before, and Sam was becoming a household name. At first it looked like it was paying off. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Then he explained how Mogul Mail helped these companies increase their sales by sending personalized cold emails. The sharks were impressed. One of them even asked him how much he charged for this service, and Sam replied that he typically charged between $30,000 to $100,000 per campaign. Pretty soon they were burning through cash at an alarming rate and would soon be forced to shut down unless he came up with a solution. That's when he hatched a plan. He would launch a new product called AI Email, which would allow businesses to generate personalized emails automatically. He believed it was a great idea, and it was definitely unique, but it wasn't exactly original. There were other companies offering similar services, and they were already quite good. But Sam didn't let that deter him. He launched AI Email anyway, confident that he could make it work. But he was wrong. That's when one of the sharks made a $600,000 offer for a 20% stake in the company, which Sam gladly accepted. Before we begin, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It would mean the world to me. But the real prize wasn't the money, it was the exposure. Now that he was officially a Shark Tank alum, he was featured in newspapers, magazines, blogs, podcasts, you name it. On top of that, he was also featured in several commercials and TV shows. At one point, it seemed like he was going to become the next big thing. But there was one problem. None of it was real. But even when times were tough, he remained relentlessly positive and ambitious, working odd jobs to put himself through school. And after graduating with honors, he started an email marketing company called Mogul Mail, which he grew to 9 figures in less than 3 years. But his greatest triumph yet came when he appeared on Shark Tank and secured a whopping $600,000 investment from one of the sharks for a 20% stake in his company. From there, he became an overnight sensation, racking up over 2 million followers on Instagram and landing countless brand deals. Everyone loved Sam. He seemed too good to be true. And well, they were right. Fast forward a few months and it's come to this. It was early 2022 when Sam first appeared on Shark Tank. He entered the set with a stack of envelopes. After the show, Mogul Mail went into overdrive. Sam's company soared to new heights, doubling its revenue in just a few months. It turned out that Sam was not only lying about his past, but his entire life. In fact, he hadn't built a multi-million-dollar company. From the moment he stepped onto the set, he was met with skepticism. But in hindsight, it probably shouldn't have. You see, while Sam was great at sales, he wasn't so great at accounting. And as the company grew, so did its expenses. You see, while AI Mail did generate some interest, it wasn't nearly enough to save the company. He spent months preparing for his appearance, studying the show, watching every episode, reading every interview he could find. In fact, he leaned into it, playing the role of the underdog who had made it big despite the odds. But behind the scenes, things were still falling apart. That's when he hatched his final scheme, the ultimate con. At first, nobody knew where he'd gone. Some said he'd run away with the money. Others said he'd faked his own death. And as word of this spread, more and more people came forward with their own stories of being scammed by Sam. So where is he now? Well, after all the accusations surfaced, Sam deleted his social media accounts and went into hiding.